What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 274 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, I'm going to just sit down and talk about how the season's been going, what I've been doing in my own personal business, as well as answering some questions from Instagram that I have not gotten back on. That every time I post one of those question bubbles, I often forget to answer those or get back to people on those, so I will just do them here, the more common questions that I get, and have a couple of topics that I also want to bring up throughout this. So before we get into today's episode, we want to thank our sponsors, Cycle CPA. And if you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. Knowledge Tree Consulting, if you are looking for somebody to help you in your business, I would highly recommend Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in our industry, and you've heard them on the podcast multiple times before. George and Peter of Oriole Landscaping, and George a couple of other times talking about various topics, and we'll definitely have George on in the future to talk more. But you can learn more about them at knowledgetreeconsulting.com. And Belgard Canada. If you don't know about Belgard, check them out at belgard.com. Find out more about their products there. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So I actually posted a reel on my Instagram account, I Am a Hardscaper, and I'll actually play the audio right here. I charged a client $200 for this 150 square foot lift and relay. We pressure washed, scraped out the bedding layer, re-screeded and relayed the pavers, installed polymeric sand. Materials cost $40 for the aggregate and $60 for the polymeric sand. I multiplied my materials by 2 and worked the entire day on this project. What would you have charged for this? Leave it in the comments. Now, I wrote in the caption after I did that what would you have charged for this? And I said, okay, if you've actually read this far, you should know that this is not what I actually charged. I posted this for 2 reasons. 1, pricing. You should never rely on your materials to recover overhead. Sometimes projects are labor heavy. Sometimes project work areas are labor heavy. Sometimes they are material heavy. This is where multiple overhead recovery systems fails contractors, as does factoring. And this is also where factoring fails contractors, where you just take your materials and multiply them by 2. I've seen people say, well, that gets me a 50% gross profit. It doesn't. There are other job-related costs associated to this project, such as disposal, fuel, and most importantly, labor. It's that gets you to that gross profit percentage. So all those direct costs for that project, including the labor on that project, is what you deduct from your revenue on that project to then give you your gross profit. Gross profit being revenue subtract direct costs. And then the second thing that I wanted to do with this was just to play with the algorithm a bit. I've seen others post similar things in terms of pricing related things, whether they're underpriced, overpriced, or just pricing in general seems to bring out a lot of contractors to give their 2 cents. And I do really appreciate it. I had a few people already know what I was doing when I posted that, whether they actually read the caption or not. And I had quite a few people not really know what I was getting at with that, because $200 for a full day's work, $100 worth of materials, so $100 in not technically gross profit, but for this purpose, would not be enough to actually sustain anybody for any point in time in their business, whether they're an owner operator or not. And I just wanted to have a little bit of fun and see who would comment on that and get into a discussion with me on that. A lot of great conversations started from this, but it was really meant to just state how certain overhead recovery systems or certain pricing systems can really not take into factor certain types of jobs that either you may do or even work areas that you may do to recover your overhead. I always go with the labor rate recovery system. We sell labor, we just recover through our labor. So however much time it's going to take, how long is our season, that gives us a percentage. We then take a percentage of our overhead to do that. For example, not everyone's going to do lift and relays. I get that. But you will have some projects that you might just do a nice backyard patio, and then on the next project you might do a backyard patio with a fire feature, with a pergola perhaps, and these are an outdoor kitchen, and these are gonna bring different percentages of subcontractors to hook up plumbing, to do electrical, to do gas, different percentages of materials on those, and different percentages of labor for each of those. Like, the amount of materials that I put into a gas fire feature is not the same ratio for a project that a patio would be. What I mean by that is the cost of fire feature materials are higher in percentage to the overall project if we were doing a fire pit than the cost of the materials to build a patio are. Our patio materials will be less in percentage for the overall cost of the job, and our fire feature materials will actually be higher in terms of percentage for the overall project. Not to mention, we have no subcontractors for our patio install, and we do have a subcontractor for our gas install. Really, the main part of our gas fire feature installation is, besides the material cost, would be the trenching for the fire pit for the gas line, our cost of our subcontractor and whatever markup we have on that, and then basically usually the base is actually already prepared because we are usually doing it in association with a patio anyways, so we don't have to really worry about that. Once you get your first course in, it's easy to build up. We don't need to backfill like a retaining wall or anything like that. So a gas fire feature is very much material heavy, less so in labor. And then I also posted this just to say that you should never be relying on your materials to recover your overhead. I just talked about multiple overhead recovery system, as I was suggesting, with different percentages for different types of work areas and projects there. But the same thing goes for factoring. Some things are going to be less material heavy. So if you just rely on multiplying by 2 to recover your overhead, it's not going to work out on every single project. So you do have to be really, really careful with that. And then with every overhead recovery method, you still want to make sure that you are priced for your market. So it's great to have these overhead recovery systems in place and to use them to price your project. But if you, depending on how you built your budget, if you have incorporated a lot of growth into your budget and you want to price for that growth, you could be pricing yourself out of the market. That also comes down to how long that project's going to take you. You could be pricing yourself out of that. So it's a balance between efficiency as well as what you are adding into your budget. And as things get more and more difficult, you may need to be more and more conscious of your pricing. You may need to revisit your budget to be able to price for the market. And then the alternative to that is that you should also work on your proposition. What is your unique selling feature of going with you, and how can you communicate that to your clients? I've touched on this in previous podcast episodes, but I don't just rely on my sales skills. I don't think I'm an amazing salesperson. I think I just let the client know what we will do and talk to them. I'm presentable. I listen to them. I let them do most of the talking and just present them some solutions to their problems. However, what I do rely on is my proposal. I have a very in-depth proposal. We do it automated through our headquarters software, the How to Hardscape Headquarters software. If you want more information on that, members.howtohardscape.com, or send me a message on Instagram at howtohardscape, and we can set you up with that. But all this does is it automates, based on our work areas, a proposal that has a exact work scope of what we're going to do to install their project. And then within that proposal and within that work area, work scope, it's going to be hyperlinked to one of our YouTube videos. So we use our YouTube videos to show the client exactly what we are going to do for them and how I would actually go ahead and install their project. So they know exactly what they're getting and how they're getting it done. And this has, I'm going to touch on my season very shortly here, but this has helped me get booked out for the remainder of the season. Still trying to hire. to help with that and into next season. I've had an influx of people reach out to me this year that have seen our YouTube videos also, that have said, I need something for next year. We're not looking at doing it this year. I need it for 2025, but we want to get it booked in and make sure that we get you. And I've seen a turn lately of a lot more people planning for 2025 and no longer planning for the remainder of this year. I don't know if other people have seen this, but this is kind of a sign for me to, you know what, let's buckle down. Let's get the remainder of the year booked out as soon as we can, so that we're not worrying about the remainder of the season. And let's also get these people in for 2025 so that we know we can start next season with a little bit of a backlog and go from spring rush and hopefully book up into the summer from there and repeat that. But we want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. It's crucial to review your financial statements on a monthly basis so you can diagnose areas for improving your business's financial health early before they become significant issues. Too many contractors wait until the end of the year to review their financials as they file taxes, when it's often too late to take action to change the outcome. Cycle CPA not only handles bookkeeping and taxes, but they also ensure that you're armed with financial data on a monthly basis to make key business decisions. They offer benchmarking, cash flow forecasting, and assistance in developing targets for financial metrics. With their team of accountants specialized in the hardscape and landscape industry, they currently work with hundreds of companies in this field. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. I've talked about these topics in the past here, just making sure that you have a good proposition for your clients, that you have a unique selling feature, and how you can actually communicate that to your client. You can't just say that you're a quality company. You need to show that you do quality work. Your client, the first thing that most people think when they hear I'm trustworthy or we are a quality company is, why did you have to say that? As opposed to, you can just show them through your reviews that you've gotten, through testimonials, and through what I would have leaned into as my strength is with long form videos. And having that and automated proposals that I don't have to do every single time and type out every single time and hyperlink every single time. I've gotten a lot of feedback from my clients, and when I ask them, why did you sign up for me? I just closed recently 2 porcelain projects, working on a third, and it's going to help me book out a large portion of my fall. Is why did you go with me? Especially when I told them that they are my first porcelain project. I actually told both of them, all 3 of them, that they would be my first porcelain project, but don't worry, I know it's going to be very similar to a paver patio installation. This is what we're going to do, and I've got YouTube videos on it and showed them how we were going to install it to rest assured them. But even with that, and them knowing that they would be my first porcelain paver project, they still continued with me, and their feedback was because of how detailed my proposal was that I sent to them, and they felt assured that I am the right contractor for them. Speaking on what has actually worked for me this season in terms of marketing, getting leads, and so on, for our drainage leads, I've discussed it before, but our website brings in a lot of drainage leads. That just comes down to the supply and demand of drainage contractors in our area, and perhaps those that have or have not created landing pages on their websites for those, because that was an easy one for me to rank for in our serviceable areas, and I get tons of drainage leads everywhere from Toronto to Kitchener, so west of Toronto and even north of Toronto. I even get the odd one from in the States or East Coast, West Coast Canada, and those are just based on SEO, so search engine optimization. Make sure that we are optimizing our landing pages for certain key terms, key phrases, and drainage just seems to be one that was really easy to be able to rank for. So if I were looking to optimize my website right now for certain search terms in preparation for next year, because it does take some time for the search engine optimization to actually get going on your website. I'd already be looking at next year for when that'll start to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit. If you were to work on it right now, I would be looking at the easiest search terms to be able to rank for. I use a tool called keysearch.io, and I believe it's .io, but it's just keysearch. If you Google search it, it is a paid tool. It's very cheap in terms of the search engine optimization tools out there, and all it is just keyword research. So you put in a term and you see how it's or how hard it would be to rank and the traffic coming into that. So you're looking for something that's easy to rank for with good traffic, and you're looking for long tail keyword key phrases. So for example, you may not want to rank for something like paver patio. You'd want to rank for something like paver patio installer, paver patio contractor. And that also does help you rank for the key term, key phrase, paver patio. Just adding more and more phrases to it, as long as it still makes sense, helps. And it would be something that somebody would actually search for, is how you would go about searching for. That's a long tail key. The more words that you add to it, it makes it longer and longer tail to it, and allows you to actually rank for all of those key phrases within that key phrase. And you can do that with a bunch of different phrases like drainage contractor, French drain contractor, French drain installer. You want to kind of measure and see how each and every single one of these would benefit your website and how easy they are to rank for. Choose the easiest one and the one with the most amount of traffic. Ideally, you just got to balance those two. Usually, if something has a lot of traffic, it's harder to rank for because more and more people are going after that harder traffic or that volume of traffic. But if you go for, say, something that has a little bit less traffic but is much easier to rank for, you may want to go with that one. Another thing that has helped is Facebook ads. I actually got both of my porcelain projects from Facebook ads, and that is more so creative. So since we already have, I wouldn't rely on pictures and phrases and things like that on Facebook. I would very much lean more towards video and making sure that you have a good hook. So how are you going to get people immediately? I have found no matter what, if you just have one service area, just one city, still say that city, because you are going through you're going to be landing on somebody's Facebook page as they're scrolling, and they'll be hit with a bunch of non-location based ads as they scroll through. But as soon as they see their city get mentioned in an ad as they're going through, they may think, whoa, this is actually speaking directly to me, as opposed to like a product that they can just order off of Amazon and so on and so forth. As soon as they see their city, it's like, oh, this is somebody actually in my city. It's a good kind of like punch that, you know what, they need to listen to this Facebook ad, or they may be immediately interested, and then kind of lean into with a hook that'll also bring them in further to your content, give them what your content is trying to provide them, and then leave them with a call to action, whatever that is that you want them to do, whether it's go to your Facebook landing page, to go to your website, to fill out a Facebook lead form, whatever that might be. I do lean people more towards a Facebook lead, where they don't leave Facebook. They just click a button. It takes them to a form that they need to put in their information, and then you can take that from there. It's a nice, easy way. You can do calls as well, where they just click a button, they call you. I do lean people away more so from the website side of things, unless they have a very good website with very good landing pages. The problem with Facebook ads is that you are just interrupting somebody as they are scrolling through Facebook, so you really have to capture their intention. Facebook, Instagram, same thing when it comes to advertising, same company, Meta, and that is the problem with Facebook ads. So you really do have to capture their attention, and Google ads is a better way to actually get somebody who's searching for your services and to get in front of them. Downside to that one is it's going to be more expensive, and you're going to have a better website if you're sending them to your website. Really good landing pages, and making sure that it's very easy for them to be able to contact you if they want to do so. But with that, Facebook, Google have been pretty good so far this year in comparison to last year. YouTube, I had gotten quite a few leads from YouTube last year. This year, the spring, I really didn't. I saw that drop off a lot. And then finally this past month, I've gotten an influx of leads from YouTube. And they've been very good leads. I've signed some people up, as well as leads for next year already that we'll be signing people up for and getting them into the schedule for that to get started for next year. So YouTube, even though it started slow at the beginning of the year, it really did pick up, and I'm still very optimistic about YouTube and continuing to post onto YouTube. I do have to change my strategy with YouTube a little bit, with being more so educational based and trying to get more into like day in the life of vlog based, I guess, to kind of appeal to a wider audience there. And what else? Oh, my supplier came through with a lot of great leads this season as well, and that has been great for me. Website SEO has been the main one, especially for those drainage leads. So if you I'm a big fan of diversification, so not relying too much on any one type of lead source. Referrals have always been a great one, and those are always the best ones to get. But if those dry up, if you don't have any other lead source to get leads from, you then need to go into panic mode. And if you haven't already played around with Google, Facebook ads, and haven't learned how to target properly, to create good, compelling content, and so on and so forth, there you can spend a lot of money and get no return on your investment of that money through paid ads. Website SEO takes time, so you need to have to plan 6 months in advance for that. And if you ever wanted to go the YouTube route, YouTube takes even more time. It took me two and a half years to finally start getting leads on YouTube, if that is the route that you wanted to go as well. So all this to say, plan in advance now in preparation for the future when it comes to your marketing. We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in the industry with 35 plus years of industry experience building Oriole landscaping in Toronto, which they are completely hands off at this point. George and Peter have been on the podcast before, and George on multiple occasions now. I've personally leaned on him to help with the How to Hardscape Headquarters software and how we can maximize the efficiency of user experience. And I know the guys at DTE Landscaping, Chuck and Jeffrey, who we've also had on the show multiple times, have hired them on in the past. Check out their consulting services, peer groups, and events that are coming up on their website, knowledgetreeconsulting.com, or check them out on Instagram at joinktc. Now back to our episode. And now there's some common questions that I get, and I want to address them here. These are specific questions that have come through on Instagram, as well as just questions that I get regularly on a few channels. And I'm not going to say the specific name of the person here or the actual what they wrote, but it has to do with low ballers. So contractors that are going around lowballing pricing. And with this, I always think that those clients that accept those lowball offers were never going to be your client in the first place. It was the wrong client, and that lowball offer just appealed to them because of the dollar amount. So they may have been somebody that was likely supposed to be in the range of poured concrete, because poured concrete is less expensive than pavers installed, and they just probably wanted pavers, so they needed to adjust their budget. They needed to keep their budget for somebody to come in and install pavers. And if you weren't going to meet that budget, they were never going to be the client for you. And at the end of the day, they're likely going to pay for it in the future. if it's a huge low ball. In this case, this one is like less than half of what I would actually charge for per square foot for a backyard patio. And I definitely used to think that, these low ballers, negative thoughts and so on and so forth there. But at the end of the day, if you kind of reframe it as this was never going to be a client of mine, I should have pre-qualified better. What I've done is I've got square foot price ranges. I always ask for a photo from the client before I go meet with them and let them know that we give an estimate first. And then if you're interested, if that matches your budget, we'll come out and we will talk to you. So automatically, if somebody was getting a price for half of what I charge, I can pre-qualify them out immediately from that initial lead from when they come in. So luckily, I don't see a lot of that anymore based on the consultations that I go to, but definitely people that will say that I got one recently where somebody said that seems excessive. Where do you get this price from? Is it labor? Is it the complexity of the project? And so on and so forth here. And I just explained to them that I sent them to our website with how a retaining wall is built and why we build it that way. And it's just a landing page with all of that information. So just explaining to them the complexity and the amount of excavation and the everything that goes into our projects, why we charge what we charge. And not that I needed to defend myself there, but just to kind of close off that conversation so that they know what they're getting into, and hopefully they can look at the contractor that they might hire and say, are you going to do this, and be able to compare apples to apples with that. But everything that I'm doing outside of my business is to put in that work to show people that ultimately reach out to us. They're reaching out to us because they know we're going to install their project properly. And that's what I've done and focused on with all of our content everywhere, so that eventually when we hit enough eyeballs, those people then turn to us. They know that they want to turn to us to be able to install their project, or at least ask us who in their area would be a good contractor to go with. That also comes down to our members in the How to Hardscape Headquarters software. They can actually post their business on a listing database that we have. And I actually just recently got somebody that said in my area that asked, are you able to install a project this season? We'd really like you. If not, is there somebody else that you could recommend? And I was able to put them in contact with somebody because we are not quite taking on any more projects for the remainder of the season, it looks like, for the time being. And that's been really helpful, as well as the SEO behind that. You do get a backlink for that. So there's lots of kind of benefits that come with that. And I'm getting sidetracked. I wanted to get back to everything that my whole strategy outside of the business with marketing and so on and so forth is just meant to be a longer term plan to get people to look at my hardscaping business as the company that they want to go with, essentially. Because more and more marketing is going to be content based, more and more people are going to be online, and that's not going to go away. Eventually, the generation that did not grow up with the internet will no longer be homeowners. I don't know how I want to phrase that properly, but the next generation that did grow up with the internet will be the ones looking to the internet for their contractors. Content based will be big for that, in my opinion, and that's where I've kind of put all of my eggs, or at least a large majority of my eggs for this. And nothing is guaranteed for the future, but that is kind of a bet that I've placed, that as those people become homeowners, we want to be the contractor for those people. We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Belgard Canada. If you live in Western Canada, Belgard has a contest running right now. If you are a football fan, Belgard and the CFL have teamed up to offer you the ultimate game day package. And here's what you can win: 2 tickets to a CFL game of your choice, VIP pre-game experience, custom jerseys, and a CFL football, food and beverage vouchers. And that's not all. You're also going to get a Belgard Beltis fire pit for your home. So enter now at belgard.com/backyardhuddle. It's open to Western Canada residents. Belgard, bringing the stadium experience home. That link is going to be in today's show notes, so be sure to check out belgard.com/backyardhuddle. Now back to our episode. Which brings me back to the Lowball Contractors. Do not get worried about those. Instead, focus on how you can communicate clearer, whether it's through your marketing or through your sales process, why you are the best contractor for the job. Going back to what I said, my proposals explain that very clearly. I don't even go through our installation process with potential clients in a consultation. I've been asked this year, last year, and I just say, anything that I tell you during this consultation, I wouldn't blame you if you forgot it. So what I do is in my proposal, you'll see everything. So don't even worry about that. I can explain anything that you want right now if you really want to, but you'll see our whole installation process in video format on our proposals. And the majority of people, their eyes light up and are like, wow, that's amazing. And then when they actually do see the videos, the majority of the time when I get feedback, it's, this is why we went with you. We saw what you did, and you were the contractor that we wanted to go with. That explains Lowball offers, Lowball Contractors, and maybe you can also reach out to them and explain how you price things. If that is something that you could also help them with, maybe even point them towards the How to Hardscape Headquarters software. We got another one here: plastic edging or concrete only. Where do you offer each one? I only do plastic edging on synthetic base, and I haven't done a synthetic base project in at least a year now, maybe a year and a half, but I do have one coming up in October. So synthetic base is the only way that I would install plastic edging, because I really do like their system where the plastic edge on top of the synthetic base, whether I'm not even going to say the brand, but also the screws that go into it. The plastic edging then attaches itself to the actual base, and you don't get that same heaving that you would get with plastic edging and those 10-inch spikes. Everything else, I go concrete, and I've yet to use any aluminum edging and so on there. And then I got lots of questions on lead generation. What works best with lead generation? I did touch on that in this episode, but we also have a 4-part marketing series. I highly suggest that you go through that on the How to Hardscape on the How to Hardscape podcast here. I definitely recommend we go through the, it's a 4-part series. The 4th part came out a couple of months ago. The other 3 parts were during the winter time, I believe. And just kind of going back to the first part, creating a client avatar. So making sure you know who you are talking to is important, and writing down what their problems are and what their fears are and so on and so forth. There we get into a lot of topics about creating that client avatar in that first part. It's a more than half an hour long podcast. Each of these are actually 40 minutes. Then we got where do you find your client avatar in part 2. So once you've got your client avatar, you know how to speak to them. You then need to find out where they are and how to market to them. And then part 3 is making content for your client's avatar. And that is how to create compelling content in video format as well as in written format for that client avatar. We want to address their problems directly, and we want to alleviate their fears indirectly. So we want to say, if you're advertising to somebody who has their steps falling apart, hey, we know your steps are your problem. We point to them. We show them that we can fix them. And we don't address their fears directly. We don't say, hey, we're a trustworthy contractor. We just show them our reviews. We show them testimonials. We show them, we want to address those indirectly and just show them that we are a trustworthy contractor rather than directly saying, hey, we are a trustworthy contractor. And then in part 4, I did do a roundup of how I believe my season was going. We have actually part 5, so I'm even remembering this incorrectly as I talk about it. Okay, we have a part 4, results, benchmarks, and budgeting. So my results from using what I spoke about, benchmarks to look for with that, and being able to budget for your marketing expenses, especially if you are increasing your marketing spend and making sure your budget reflects that. And then marketing part 5, if you need leads now, you should listen to this. So we talked about that in more depth, especially paid ads. And each of those are 40 minutes. And so that is almost 3 hours of content right there to kind of listen to if you're looking to improve your marketing strategy for the near future for your business. And if you are going to HNA, you can use a VIP NOFH. That's HNA or Equip, whatever expo. If you sign up for either one, it's one entire show. So that's VIP HTH, I believe. And if that doesn't work, you can always use VIP NOFH. That's for the Not Our Finest Hour podcast with me, myself, Paver King, and Chad of the Landscape Daddy. If you want to go, I think it's 50% off your tickets there, and you should sign up soon so that you can get the early bird pricing discount on top of that. I think it's then just $15 to be able to go. So that is HNA, Equip, whatever. If you're looking to sign up for the How to Hardscape Headquarters software demo, I would do that shortly because our prices are going to increase and you can get locked in on your price before that increase. Go to members.howtohardscape.com to learn more about that. And if there's ever anything that you want me to go further in depth on this podcast, in any of these topics or anything else, questions, send me a message at howtohardscape on Instagram. And we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program after a couple weeks of releasing our interlocking concrete pavement installation course on audio here and the segmental retaining wall installation course on audio here. And now this one, we'll be back with a lot more interview-based episodes in the future here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode, and we want to say thank you to our sponsors, Belgard Canada. If you want to hop in on that Belgard giveaway, that's belgard.com/backyard huddle. 2 tickets to a CFL game of your choice and other experiences, as well as the Belgard Beltis Fire Pit. I highly suggest you check that out, belgard.com/backyard huddle. And Cycle CPA, if you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. And Knowledge Tree Consulting, if you're looking for efficiency consultants who have a lot of experience in our industry, check out Knowledge Tree Consulting at knowledgetreeconsulting.com. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.